Good morning. That wasn't the start that we were hoping for, but I can't sing or dance, so we had the technical issue, so we apologize for that. So again, my name is Andy Verone, and I'm joined on stage with Oliver Greenwood, and it is our absolute pleasure and honor to be participating today in the Oracle Construction and Engineering Future of Projects event. So thank you for your business, thank you for your partnership, and thank you for taking time out of your busy Tuesday to join us. For this first section of our presentation, I'm going to need your help. So in the spirit of the future of projects, I need you to think about what your work site, what your company, what your manufacturing shop floor, what your oil and gas facility may look like in the year 2030. I don't want you to think this is a science fiction activity. I want you to think about what you will need to do to enable your organizations as you plan for the future. When Oliver and I meet with customers from around the globe, we do a session like this in a very small room, and we listen to our customers as they tell us about their innovations. Those innovations are sometimes already a reality. Many of the things that Oliver and I will talk about today are things that are available, technologies that are available, hardware, available today, but not at scale. So what we'd hope to show you, if you would come with me on a journey, is what would your work site, your office, your teams look like in the year 2030. So as we begin, there's three trends. One, the everywhere work site. Two, everything is connected. And three, data, both big and small, matter. So let's imagine that all of our project data can be accessed anytime, anywhere through the 5G connected device. So now that we're in the year 2030, 5G is a reality, and it's going to be able to help us transfer massive amounts of data very, very quickly. Vehicles are now fully autonomous, allowing us to be productive as we travel to our work sites, into our offices, into our facilities. Workers, your community, your users will be able to access live video streams and check conditions of the site real time. Depth sensing cameras are going to provide images and imagery to you so you can base what's happening at your location, your work site, with what's happening in your models. So again, remember, 2030. We're at scale now. Last week, Oliver and I had the opportunity to host a very similar event in New York City. We had about 400 of our customers, but on display, we had technology, much of what I'm going to speak about today, that is a reality. The challenge that I throw out to all of you is help us bring that technology to your organizations at scale. So back on 2030, we believe, and our customers tell us, that we will tip the scales of what actually gets performed at the site or facility versus what will happen remotely. The technology will allow us to interact with our models using 4D, 5D, and through the use of holograms. The lines between the digital and visual world will become one. You will be able to see real-time information Make very informed decisions as you execute, not only on your projects, but as those assets become fully operational. The second key trend that we hear a lot of, and remember we're in 2030, so we're in the future, is everything is connected. Wearables, allowing detailed tracking of our users, of our resources, of our employees, will not only be sending back real-time information, but it will help you manage your projects and your assets more effectively. Sensors are now fully deployed across your assets, bringing information that you can make valuable decisions on with the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. To the point of even having augmented workers. Last week, we saw at our conference the ability to use exoskeletons to help the workers do their job more effectively, longer, but at the same time being safe, monitoring not only the production of the worker, but also the worker's health. The last trend in 2030, which will be at scale, is the use of data. We have spent a lot of time, and I know your organizations has as well, collecting data. In the future, not only will we collect the data, but we'll have the opportunity to use that data to make informed decisions. So in 2030, imagine all project team members will use a fully integrated technology platform where project data is captured, shared, and managed throughout the project and the asset lifecycle. Sensors will enable real-time decision-making so your organizations can get the most out of that capital asset. Last on data, effective safety and emergency responses to your facilities, to your sites, to your oil and gas locations. The ability to deploy drone technology to capture what's happening on site and quickly bring that information back so the emergency responders can act on it. We have the opportunity to give ourselves, through the use of technology, a great opportunity to increase not only safety, but productivity. It is all too often we hear that the engineering, construction, oil and gas industries lag behind in technology. In 2030, not only we will no longer be a laggard, but we will be leading. We need your help. For us, getting to that future state is why we are here today, thinking about the future of our projects. Partnering with Oracle, partnering with you, our customers, and also listening to make sure that we deliver the best solutions for you is our goal. Oliver?
Thank you, Andy. Ni hao, good morning. That is as much Mandarin as I know, and I apologize. My name is Oliver Greenwood, and although I am a vice president within Oracle, I have actually two jobs to do today. I'm the luckiest man at the conference, so I get to talk about the future. I also get to talk about my own company, and I don't have to base myself in reality, which is always good fun. The second thing is I studied as an engineer. I was a project manager on many project sites around the world, and we're already behind time and probably way over budget with this presentation today. So my job is to bring us back on time and probably not in budget. So let me talk a little bit about the Construction and Engineering Global Business Unit. You've seen the logo, you've seen the presentations, but what is the Construction and Engineering Global Business Unit? So Oracle is a very large organization. We have many different aspects to what we do, from software to hardware to the silicon and everything in between. Oracle is aligned horizontally, traditionally, around ERP, around human capital management in the HCM, customer relationship management in CRM. But it's often felt that within the engineering market, there is the need for depth. And that is where the Global Business Unit for Construction and Engineering comes from. And there's 7 of us with different focuses within Oracle. It means, like myself and like Andy, we're predominantly from industry. I didn't train to be in software sales. As I say, I trained to be a project manager. And the idea is that we provide the depth to your organizations. Many of you here today will know us from Primavera. So we have been busy and we've been spending Larry Ellison's money. So we've acquired over the years organizations such as Skya, which you'll know from our Unifier products, Textura, which we will talk a little bit about today, and very recently a company called Aconex around the collaboration and document management space. We've spent in the last 10 years $2 billion, about $2 billion. And I'll explain a little bit more later in the presentation about why that is and why we think in engineering, at this point in time, it is a very, very exciting place to be. You've already seen it from Shizen's presentation, but this is us with numbers, and I don't want to bore you with numbers. I don't want to spend time going through it, but there's a couple of really key numbers on this slide that I want you to take away, which you may not know us for. So I'm very small, I apologize, but up there, that top one up there, $6 billion a month goes through our systems. So we have supply chain systems that are used globally to manage subcontracts and contractors' payments. And you may be wondering why that may be important for you here today. Principally, we are not just around plan, build, and operate. It's the whole asset life cycle. And what we really want to do between Andy and I today is talk a little bit about that asset life cycle. In the past, you will have seen many organizations, myself included, who have sat here and talked to you about planning. And then we maybe go to another conference and we'll talk to you about building. And then another one will talk to you about operating. Nowadays, with the digital transformation that's happening, that's no longer needed. You have to think about the plan, build, and operate phases of your business. So whether you're a power organization looking at the long-term life cycle, whether in nuclear or renewables, or you're an investment company looking to build the biggest high-rise in Beijing or Shanghai, it is the life cycle of that asset that we want to help you with, not just the single phases within there. And that $6 billion talks about that life cycle, not just thinking about the management of time, and not just thinking about the management of cost, but also the flow of money across that asset, and how Oracle and our organization, the CEGBU, can help you with that. Our principal guide, our mission statement, is around transforming the world by helping organizations and, such as yourself plan, build, and operate critical assets. So it's a nice kind of phrase. There's a couple of key words in there. The first is critical. We have great experience and we continue to work with large organizations around the assets that you are creating today. And everybody in this room is creating assets. As I say, whether it's ships, whether it's railway, whether it's power stations or buildings or bridges or dams or roads, or even IT software. These are all projects to us, and that is our focus as we kind of continue through. So I'm just going to hand back to Andy, who's going to talk a little bit about how we're addressing that from our strategy. Andy.
Oliver, thank you. So we thought about the future, and what our organizations might need. Oliver has given you an overview of what our GBU, our Oracle Global Business Unit, does. So now I'd like to spend a few minutes talking to you what our product and innovation strategy is to achieve this. So when we created the strategy, it really came down to 6 simple elements. The elements that we believe will help you achieve your goals. First, we build software. That's what we do, right? And this morning we had conversations with a few customers about using our software as many as 25 years ago. So we build software. First element of the strategy. The second is we leverage the greater Oracle. So we are one part of a much larger company. There are opportunities for us to leverage the greater Oracle around technology, around database, around cloud, and specifically around IoT. We'll talk more about that in a second. Third, it's innovate. I have never seen in my 30 years in the engineering construction industry as many point solutions that are out there trying to solve very, very small use cases. Some of those companies we will invest in. So innovate and invest. The third, as Oliver mentioned, we acquire companies, right? Since I've been in the GBU, we've spent over $2 billion in acquiring technology companies. And we will continue to look for firms that are both innovative and help us expand geographically. The fifth element is partners. And I know that's very important to this part of the world. Not only in the partners that help us implement and deploy our software, but also innovative partnerships. We will not do all things, especially when it comes to hardware. There may be opportunities through drones, through wearables, through VR and AR, that we would need to partner with those tech companies. And the sixth element, and most importantly, is the customer. Bringing innovation from you to my team as we set out to build products. If we go another level down on the strategy, you will see there's 2 elements. There's the internal element across the top, but then there's the external element, which is important. If I show some examples of where we've done all 6 of these elements of the strategy, we build P6, Unifier, solutions you use today. The Oracle IoT Cloud Service. There was no need for us in our GBU to build that, so we leveraged Oracle. There's a small company that we're investing in called Reconstruct. What Reconstruct does is a proper handover wasn't completed at the time of construction. Reconstruct will go in and they will digitize that asset, no matter what it is, linear, vertical, buildings, plants, and they will reconstruct digitally the asset using 4D imagery, drone technology, and a very, very strong software solution. So Oracle has decided through our scale-up program that we would invest. We mentioned the Aconex acquisition. Very, very excited. Oliver and I have been working on that acquisition for almost a year, and we're almost to the point where we'll have the companies combined. We're excited about that. Along the bottom of the slide, you will see examples of companies that we have partnered with from a technology. Most of these companies provide hardware. It may be an RFID chip, both passive and active. It may be AR and VR, glasses, hard hats, helmets, or it could be something that does drone imagery and photography. So again, things that we may not build, but things that we know, technology that is going to help us achieve our future. Very, very shortly, under the customer, we are about to kick off an innovation lab. We're going to break ground in the United States of our first innovation center. In that center, we will showcase our solutions. We will bring you in to help us understand where your industry is going and what you need from innovation. And we will also have our partner community present. So all very exciting things. Again, from the customer perspective, it's about strategy. How and where should we be going to better suit your requirements? Bringing it back to the last slide, it really about 6 simple elements. We build, we leverage, we innovate, we acquire, we partner, and we look at our customers to give us that guidance. Oliver?
Thanks, Andy. So I said earlier, I'm a very lucky man, and that's not just because I was born on the 8th day of the 8th month. It is because I get to travel the world. I get to travel the world here today in Beijing. Last week I was with Andy in the US, Australia, the UK from where I'm from, and everywhere in between. One of the nice things about this is my goal today is just to introduce you to some trends. Things that we are seeing that is going on in businesses like your own around the world. Now, some of these are going to be highly applicable here from China. Some of them will be applicable to your international businesses that work outside of China, specifically on joint ventures, and we've heard about the Belt and Road initiative. But hopefully you get something from this. I think I'm going to start with probably the #1 thing that we're seeing today. And excuse me for the very bad slides, but I'm trying to illustrate a point. About 30 years ago, that's predominantly when I started in the industry, probably a little less, about 30 years, we had a very owner-centric view of project controls. So building projects, we had the owner taking predominantly control over risk, over cost, over field execution, contractor admin, and things weren't so great. Not because the clients weren't great, but that's a lot to do, especially as you're handing off to an EPC or a contractor or a third-party organization. About 5 years ago, we had a real flip round. So we saw globally what we call EPC-led initiatives. And the idea behind this was very, very simple. The clients were fed up with stuff coming over time and over budget, and they put the risk onto the EPC. And the EPCs were very clever and took on that risk, but provided they took the risk, they didn't take it for free, they charged that back to the customer. So again, we didn't really see a massive improvement except on time, but cost was still wildly out of control. People were paying for risk. So the first kind of takeaway and trend that we're seeing is what we're calling the intelligent client. Or, another way of putting it is the intelligent EPC. Basically, it is a differentiation on the projects world, and we're seeing this time in, time out, around who owns the relative parts of the project control. I'll get out of the way. I'll move away this bit so you can see this a little bit better. This is just overlaying governance and visibility, which makes this more interesting from a trend perspective. We're still seeing customers or clients own the schedule. Now, I don't mean just managing the time of the build, but the schedule in terms of the asset, as I talked about earlier. We're seeing clients and the EPCs in particular taking a large chunk of cost. And to be honest, the cost and risk are the same thing for me because you can't have one without the other. So you're never going to find an EPC that takes on the costs and doesn't take on the risks. Well, if you do, you're on the best contract you've probably ever seen. But essentially, we're also seeing clients taking more control back over the design process, trying to have more control over what that asset will do. And again, the reason for this, the trend that we see, is because the client looks at the life cycle rather than just the build aspect. Field execution naturally falls with the EPCs. So that's the first trend that we wanted to highlight today. We're seeing a differential between the various aspects within a project life cycle happening. And contracting types, whether here in China or outside of China with joint ventures, this is something that is probably occurring as we speak. Shifting gears, other trends that we see, technology trends. Andy talked a little bit about our partnership strategy. So there is a lot going on at the moment in our industry, in many industries, around digitization. So a lot of what we're seeing at the moment is around BIM. 3D, 4D, 5D BIM, and how that relates. BIM has been around for a long, long time. It is not something that is new, but what is starting to be new is how we take that concept of BIM, not just the 3D model, but the concept of building information and using it to do better. I personally think in the last 10 years, especially around BIM, not enough progress has been made. BIM is a wonderful opportunity for your organizations to have a look at how that can make things better. And as I say, it's not just around the drawing phase. I mean, we see a lot around 3D drawings that tends to be a lot more expensive to produce, but when you attach that to a time element and hopefully a cost element, it becomes much more exciting for your organizations. You can start to track. We're seeing a lot around drones. So Andy talked a little bit about how we're partnering. Oracle, I will never say never at Oracle, but it is unlikely that we will become a drone manufacturer anytime soon. But the concept of drones is very interesting to us in engineering because the availability of information is escalating at a phenomenal rate of knots. So all a drone is to me is another vehicle to capture data within the project space. But we're starting to see rail companies, we're starting to see electricity distribution companies, we're starting to see investment firms on high-rise use these type of technologies to get a better understanding of the asset. We believe over the next 2 to 3 years, and again, trends, the kind of future of project side, you're going to hear a lot more about the industrialized process. So a trend we see specifically in construction, and for those of you who are in the construction market, is this concept of manufacturing. Rather than building a single asset that is technically a beautiful snowflake, it's a one-off, never to be repeated again, we're starting to see manufacturing principles from the GEs, from the Rolls-Royces, from the Siemens of the world, come into the construction space to look at manufacturing techniques. Prefabrication is not the answer to everything, but you're going to see more of that in the space. Artificial intelligence, it's a buzzword, but what it is relating to is you're going to start to see automation is probably a better word. So instead of just having a project manager look over the complexities of the project based on their years of experience, you're going to see some form of automation or intelligence applied to that project to be able to spot trends earlier. The human brain is a wonderful thing, but when you can what it can't do is do a mass comparative calculation within the blink of an eye. Very good at spotting trends as a human beings, but we're not very good at computing huge chunks of data. That on any project could be incredibly interesting to your organizations. So other technologies that are already swirling around, such as big data, become highly interesting. Blockchain, from our perspective, and we're going to see this, I think, more and more on the construction sites of the world and in the contracts of the world, is fascinating. It is the concept, basically, that within the contracting process, let's say between Andy and I, we don't need a bank. We can run our own ledger between the two of us and disseminate that, encrypt it, of course, throughout the world, so we can validate the relationship against that contract without needing to go through a third party. So blockchain for us is around security, speed, but also trust. It's a very quick and easy way to remove a third party from the equation instead of having a single point of failure. Augmented reality, we've heard a lot about VR. I still am yet to be convinced myself about how VR will help our industries, but we're starting to see augmented reality instead of virtual reality become more commonplace. whether it was the failed Google Glass experiment, but you're starting to see information relayed on site. And again, this is not a new thing. It's just the logical conclusion. We've started to see iPads and iPhones and Android phones and devices of all sorts work their way into projects. This is just the next logical conclusion. And longer term, 3D printing, if you follow the logic about what we're talking about from an industrialized process around prefabrication, you're starting to go and see more about production at site. So not just bringing the components together, but the difficulty with the manufacturing process is building out an inventory. Now, if you don't have to keep an inventory, you don't have to keep that on your books, we think there's a logical transgression towards 3D printing at scale. At the moment, the industry or the technology isn't there, but it's coming. Robots are not taking over the world, but robots themselves, and Andy talked about it a little bit, you know, the use of robotics for repetitive manual tasks at site or in a factory floor is already commonplace in industrial manufacturing. But to be able to do that and specify the job a little bit more advanced will become more commonplace. And then autonomous equipment. We're starting to see the start of that. You're starting to see with the car manufacturers, the Teslas of the world, autonomous driving. Well, if you think about a large build, whether it be a road, rail, airport, you'll see plenty of trucks, cranes, etc., moving around site. It's a logical conclusion to see those change. But why are they interesting? For us, and Andy has already highlighted it, the trend for us is not the technologies themselves, it's the data they produce. And we think that is the real secret sauce, or basically the real gem, the diamond, about what all these technologies mean to your organizations. The trend is towards data. Understanding what that data means for your business, now that is the real future. Just having the data at the moment, as we're finding with our big data, is not good enough anymore. Insight, rather than just reporting, insight is what we all crave.
Yeah, Oliver, before we go off that slide, when I visit with customers, this is what they're telling us, right? So we validate these technologies with the customer. And it's interesting that every time we talk about this slide, there's a lot of agreement. But I will tell you, some firms are way more advanced than others. So when we show this slide to some of our more progressive EPCs, energy folks, they say, oh, we're already doing that. But what I do is I kind of push back and say, are you doing it on a single project, or are you doing it at scale? So if you think about the 2030 vision, we have to be doing this at scale. So we have probably validated these columns with probably over 50 customers globally. And quite frankly, it doesn't change much. In South Africa, to Oliver's point, there's written in the contract, there is a percentage of material that should be printed with 3D. So it's coming, right? The thing I like to do, and I always end every meeting with this slide to say, where does your organization fit in? What are the things that you're investing in today? How can we help you capture that data? So throughout today, if you have any ideas for Oliver and I on this slide, we would love to hear them. So Oliver, back to you.
Cheers, Andy. So shifting gears again. So some of the business challenges that we see you operating through. Increased complexity. The world is getting more complicated, not just from a national level, but from an international level. There is an increase in competition. And you might be wondering, well, you know, from a China perspective, what does that mean? I was with a Chinese power generation company 3 weeks ago in Shenzhen. And essentially, you look at what Tesla is doing and certain Chinese companies are doing with solar. So here is a state-owned electrical generating organization that is sitting down and talking about how they manage their business. And at the other end of this massive firm is the customer. and the customer is starting to invest in solar tiles for their roof. Now we've seen solar panels, but solar tiles, so the customer is also the generator of electricity. That's what we mean by new sources of competition. It's not just a case of competing within the industry itself, is we are seeing a lot more innovation upturning the changes that we see from a company perspective. We're seeing policy uncertainty and customer choice. Again, a lot of organizations refer to the Uber example. But if you see just about any service industry here in China, it is massive innovation at the moment about what is a restaurant. What is a restaurant? It used to be a place where we come together. Now, you can get a third-party firm to deliver that food to your family without going near the restaurant. What is important to that restaurant now? Is it the place that they operate, or is it the quality of the food? Now, it's a really bad example, and I apologize for a really bad example, but in your industries, this type of innovation is happening all the time, and it's not a time to be comfortable around what your organizations do. This is a McKinsey slide, hence it's got lots of graphs and lots of numbers on it. And basically, this lovely McKinsey slide just talks about productivity. So again, why is the industry transforming itself? If we look at the orange line, that's construction and engineering. In the best part of what, 20, 30 years, 25 years, it's hardly moved. And that's great for organizations such as Oracle, for your competitors and organizations that you work with, because there is a massive gain to be made. Manufacturing doesn't, there are other efficiencies that we can talk about, but it's an industry that is about to go through this transformation. And again, as Andy talked about, the question today is not, wow, this, there can be efficiency saving. It's, where is your organization in this? Are you having those discussions? How are you going to embrace the changing nature of the services you provide?
Yeah, the challenge, Oliver, one of the challenges we see as we travel and talk to our customers, that there will be firms that will come in and disrupt our industry if we don't take action. As Oliver mentioned, just like Uber had disrupted ride sharing, there are non-engineering construction firms that are looking at our industry saying, this is an industry that we can probably go in and disrupt with technology. We want that not to happen, right? We want to give you the ability to be more productive and also safer as you're performing that work.
Thanks, Andy. So listen, I love this slide, and if you're going to take one thing away from what Andy and I have talked about, I think this is the slide. So you can take the pictures now. The interesting thing about this, 8% is wasted during the selection. This is money being wasted, just thrown away because of inefficiencies in the industry. 8% at a portfolio, 15% during the project execution, and 15% over the cost of the life cycle. Now, the reason I love this is that if you are in any way associated with the selection of the project, this is an easy thing to fix. So selecting what work to be done and the planning phase of that, I think, is, with technology, very, very simple if you haven't looked at that. This piece, I have stood on many stages like this one and talked to customers like you about saving time and saving money. Being on time, being on budget, or on schedule. This, and we still haven't done it, by the way. We're still losing 15%, and I've been in the industry 25 years, Andy's been in less. But essentially, this 15% is incredibly hard to influence. We've been trying, we've created software, we've been focused on time and on budget. But the simple thing is that the supply chain, you're dealing with many, many different partners and companies. So again, I generally, when I look at this and I'm looking at assets and we're working with projects, this is hard. And there is good best practice now, as you will see today, from companies that will present to you about how they're using it. There is great best practice, but our ability to innovate here is shrinking. I think the very interesting piece is this 15%, which links the owner with the supply chain. That's going to be a challenge for all of us, and it's something that we are focused at from an Oracle perspective. So the trend here is having a look at where we can make a difference within the project control space. This piece in the middle, well understood. The piece at the front, not so much understood. And the piece at the end, we've only just got started at. Again, the takeaway for the teams and your organizations today is just trying to understand if you're investing in these particular areas. We see organizations come up with different lines of thinking, dual innovation. So the concept that in your organizations, not all things should be created equally. We see organizations within this space starting to have what we call innovation tracks. In real terms, it means that this orange piece, this develop the business models to power future growth, is something new. In the past, organizations just used to throw money into both things at once. Just do things better, do them more efficiently. But that hasn't yielded the results. And the reason that we bring that to a trend as such is this. It's not just around trying to save money or being more efficient. This is the CEO of an energy company in Italy, I believe. But they're saying it's not just about running the business, not just about cost saving. It's about looking for new opportunities, looking for better ways to innovate, to revolutionize how we do this. So going back to my restaurant example or my Uber example, it's a case of having a think of how different technologies can massively impact your business. And likewise, innovation isn't always a destination. So innovation for the sake of innovation, just saying I need to get here, isn't true innovation. This is again from the same CEO talking around innovation being for his organization the ability to be ready to innovate. It's not just the destination about where they need to get to, it's the process of how they take that journey. I find this very interesting because organizations tend to look at innovation about, right, what is our drone strategy? What is our Internet of Things strategy? These are great questions that don't really lead to your organization making a difference. One of the great trends, and I'll probably talk about this later, is we're starting to see software and solutions come together. So one of the things that you will see over the next couple of years is the word platform. Platform in software terms is the concept that things working together in the same space on the same technology. Andy talked about we've never seen so many individual pieces of this puzzle. We've never seen so many companies offering risk or offering portfolio or offering cost or ERP, etc. What we are starting to see is organizations like you consolidate. The dream of best of breed, the idea that you stitch together software, you have the best risk, the best ERP, the best planning, the best cost, etc., isn't really, is in fact a dream. The reality of joining those 5, 6, 7 things together and getting value out of it, getting true insight, is very, very hard to deliver. And we're very lucky from an Oracle perspective because we believe in the platform. We believe that, and you see that from our acquisition strategy, you start seeing us bring together these parts. We truly, as Shizen talked about in his presentation, want to drive value. And again, today is not just about the software, it is about what the insight is for your organizations. And of course, it wouldn't be an Oracle presentation without talking a little bit about the products, but I'm going to leave that for another time. One of the last trends, I've just got a couple that I want to share with you. The schedule and cost around an asset, that's been in play for about 25 years. Governance and control, the concept that better processes means that we can get to the asset revenue quicker, that's about 5 years. Where we think we're at the moment, and this is why the Future of Projects event is so critical for us, is this: operations excellent. The industry as a whole does not do enough to learn from each other. Operational excellence, if we focus here, impacts your revenues, your cash flow, your business quicker than just focusing on time and cost. So just a question, and Andy posed a question, and this is just a question. I'll leave it on screen a little bit. But we talk a lot around maturity and where you are as organizations in this particular space. The question here is for you, not for us. Where do you think you are? What are the next steps? And if you haven't asked that question of yourselves, I would urge you to do so. There is no right or wrong answer to this. It's just a case of having a plan to embrace what is happening with these trends. So Andy and I are just going to leave you with this piece, which is again highlighted from McKinsey. McKinsey is saying that just through this digital transformation, there is a 6% saving. Now that doesn't seem a lot, but across organizations of the scale and size that are represented here in the room today, that is a significant bonus both for your companies, for your employees, for the citizens of China, and from the government of China. It is something that we're trying to drive waste out of this industry. We see it as one of the worst things that happens within the project space. The use of money is poor, and we want to help you do better with less. So thank you very much on behalf of myself. I look forward to meeting you all today, and I hope you've enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.